This video is about the Bucyrus Erie 10B drag shovel. Some companies refer to this as a pull shovel. It's most commonly known as a cable backhoe. This particular model is a 1951 with a 6-cylinder butagas engine. First, let's take a look at some of the things that make the drag shovel unique. As we all know, a hydraulic machine has 3 sets of cylinders on it, at the base of the boom, at the top of the boom, and for curling and uncurling the bucket. The cable excavator has to do the same set of functions with only 2 cables on it, which only, of course, pull towards the machine. Now, one of the things that's unique about it is that the bucket on the cable backhoe does not curl. It is rigidly mounted. If we look at the cables on this machine, our hoist cable, which comes out of the top, runs across the A-frame there, attaches to the top of the handle, makes its way back to the A-frame, and finally is anchored there at the top of the handle. The other line, the drag cable, which comes out lower along the top of the boom there, and it loops down through the sheave on the bucket, and it is secured to the base of the boom, as you can see there. Now, the biggest disadvantage to this machine is the inability to curl the bucket to help retain the load. The only way to really retain the load is the bucket has to be drawn in tight up against the boom, and the boom has to be lifted up pretty high, and you still have a limited amount of clearance underneath the bucket in the fully raised position with the bucket up close to the machine. Maximum dumping height is only about 8.5 feet. For that reason, the handle on the machine is relatively short. If it were long, you would not be able to raise the boom high enough in order to allow you to load into a truck or to pile the material up very high. Another unique feature is the auxiliary A-frame. And what this is used for is to keep the hoist cable in an elevated position. You can see the hoist cable running up here to the top of the A-frame, out to the tip of the handle, back to the A-frame, and out again. If it wasn't for the A-frame, that cable would be in a much lower position, similar to the drag cable right there, and when you lowered the boom down, that cable would be rubbing on the top of the boom. Now, let's talk a little about how these 2 cables are able to perform all the functions for the machine. If you simply start to draw in the hoist cable, which is attached to the top of the handle, the bucket's going to move outwards and you'll be extending the handle. In order to raise the boom, you have to step on the brake pedal for the hoist cable. That prevents the handle from extending outwards, and when you try to draw in the hoist line, it'll raise the entire boom. Once you have the boom in the raised position, to extend the handle, you would simply let off on the brake pedal for the drag cable and the handle would move outwards. When you're digging, it's just the weight of the boom and the bucket that give this machine its digging effort, and you draw in on the drag cable, pulling the bucket towards the machine just like on a regular backhoe, and you can control the depth of the digging via the brake pedal for the hoist cable. If you step on the brake pedal for the hoist cable and continue to draw the bucket towards the machine, it won't allow the handle to pivot any farther there at the top, and it'll start to raise the boom. That's how you control your digging depth on the machine. Now, dumping is one of the most difficult parts. When you have the bucket drawn in close to the boom and have it in a raised position, if you simply start to let off the drag cable as the handle extends outwards, of course that cable at the top will start to loosen and the boom will go down. So in order to dump into a truck or to pile material to any height while you're letting off on the brake for the drag cable, you have to be operating the clutch, pulling the cable at the top to keep the boom from going into a low position. Now let's go up in the cab and take a look at the controls. Here in the back we have the main control panel for the motor. We have our choke, our throttle, our ignition switch, and a starter button. Here we go with all our controls. This very outside lever here is a locking lever for the two brake pedals. You can raise the boom up in the air, push down on the brake pedals, pull back on that lever, and it will lock it into position and allow it to stay up in the air. This next lever here is the main clutch on the motor that engages the machinery. This is your hoist lever. This is a dipper trip lever if the machine were equipped with the shovel front. This is our drag lever. This lever here allows us to swing the machine left and right or propel forward and backward depending on which direction we have this lever here set. Right now it is in the forward position for propelling. It's got a neutral and it has a swinging position. This lever here is for the high-speed propel, which is like a high gear when you need to move the machine quickly. I've never used it. This is our house lock. This prevents the machine from swinging when you're propelling it. This is our boom hoist control, which with the drag shovel front end, the boom hoist cable is simply hooked to that outside small shiv there on the A-frame. Once you get it into position, you never have to touch that. And finally here we have our steering crank, which you crank either forward or backwards depending on which way you want to steer the machine. So looking at our controls, the hoist cable here, push forward to engage, is going to raise the boom, and then you step on the pedal next to the lever down there to hold the boom in a raised position when you get it there. And the drag drum here, you would push forward on this lever to engage to pull the bucket towards the machine. Again, getting it into position, you let off the lever and you step on the brake pedal. I'm going to start the machine up here and attempt to give you a little demonstration. We'll see how it goes. The machine's pretty noisy here. We'll see how this microphone picks up. Now the first thing we have to do is engage the main clutch. This will start the machinery turning. Now in order to raise the boom we have to do two things. We have to step on the brake pedal or the drag cable, and we have to engage the clutch on the hoist cable. This allows us to raise the boom without extending the handle. To extend the handle, we're simply going to let off on the brake pedal or the drag cable. In order to pull the handle in, if it were lower down into the digging position, we would let off of the brake pedal and engage the clutch. Again, when we want to lower the boom, we simply let off on the brake pedal that I've been holding this whole time, and the boom will lower to the ground. quick demonstration of how we would dig. Extend the handle, simply let off on the brake pedal. Handle's been extended. I had to actually raise the boom hoist a little bit. I let off on both pedals. Now I pull on the drag cable, pull the bucket towards the machine. Once it's all the way towards the machine, I let off and I depress the brake pedal so that the handle will not extend outwards. Now I press on the hoist lever. I raise it up. Once it's in the raised position, in order to dump it, you simply let off on the brake pedal for this drag cable. You'll notice the boom goes down as we do that, unless you draw in tape because it's like slack instead of wasting. So there you go, guys. That's a quick demonstration of the cable backhoe front on a Bucyrus Erie 10B. Pretty difficult to explain, a lot more complex than running the drag line. My time running this machine with the backhoe attachment on it has been measured in minutes, and I can tell you that it is a very tricky process. It's a lot more difficult than operating a new hydraulic excavator. Thanks for watching.